What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got an edition of The Drive-In, where I talk to you guys about a recent movie that just came out in theaters. And I just saw, this past weekend, actually a few days ago, I just saw 2019's Escape Room. There's been much ballyhoo about this movie, saying it looked like a mix of like Saw and Cube. This sort of escape room sort of thing. It's a hot trend right now. So I went to see Escape Room with a friend of mine for this edition of The Drive-In, and I want to give you guys the full review right now. There's going to be spoilers in this review. I'll try and keep those toward the end. So I'll do the first half of this review spoiler-free, and then I'll warn you guys before the spoilers at the end of the movie, or at the end of the review, so you guys can skip that part if you guys have not seen the movie yet. This movie had a lot of potential. I'll get into it in a second. So the movie was written by Broggie F. Schutt and Maria Melnick. I hope I didn't butcher those names. Directed by Adam Robitaille, who was also the director of Insidious 4 and a couple of other horror genre movies. And starring Logan Miller, Deborah Ann Wall, and Taylor Russell. Essentially, the plot of this movie, without giving too much away, is that I think six strangers wind up kind of in a rough place in life. They've all kind of undergone tragedies, and they're all kind of at a low point in their lives right now, and they all get mysterious messages saying they can win, I think it's $10,000, if they survive this escape room, where they put you in a room and you all work together to solve clues and puzzles to get out of the room, and if you make it out of the room, the winner gets $10,000. So these strangers are all brought together into this escape room, which starts earlier than they expect, and they've got to work together and try to survive. But of course, the escape room is trying to actually kill them. It's not quite a game. It is real life for them. So they are trying to survive death and all these unique traps. So positives right away. I want to start with the positives. Deborah Ann Wall, you guys know her from True Blood and from Daredevil. She's excellent. She steals the show in this for me. She's the one name that I recognized, and she was just great. She plays this ex-military veteran who survived this tragedy, and she's just incredibly strong and smart, and she just has this piercing eyes and just conviction in her voice. She's a powerful actress, and she looked really good in this movie. I really enjoyed her. Taylor Russell was pretty solid too. She was set up to be the introvert, quiet, I think she's like a scientist, very introverted, very shy, very soft-spoken. But she winds up being a strong character that kind of comes out of her shell at some point in this movie as well. And that's pretty much the plot, is these six people realize early on they're stuck in a real-life escape room with something trying to kill them. They got to figure out what it is and how to survive it. So talking about this without spoiling, it's going to be tough, but I will try really quickly to sum it up. Again, positives, besides Deborah Ann Wall, overall the acting wasn't bad. It was hit or miss. Some were really good, some were bad. Deborah Ann stole the show. Taylor Russell was good as well. And I think Logan Miller played the black guy who was kind of survival of the fittest, strong kind of asshole character. But the problem with the casting here was the 3 or 4 different characters were kind of all assholes to each other. Usually you have these tropes where one person is like really empathetic, one person is very kind of cold and turn their back on the world. Different tropes. And this one you had like 3 or 4 characters kind of all being assholes and all being about themselves. Even whenever stuff was going wrong and started to show them they had to work together, they still were kind of being cold toward each other, and it didn't really show. The vibe in the rooms was kind of cold. There wasn't a whole lot of working together until it was too late. A lot of the characters didn't really connect with each other, so I didn't really like that. But the acting was up and down, hit or miss, but when it was strong, like in the case of Taylor and Deborah, it was really strong. So there are some good points in the acting here. One of the big positives of this is the escape rooms, or the first half of the escape rooms, I should say. The first 3 I thought were really good. There's one in the beginning that kind of involves like some fire stuff. There's the third room, which is everyone's favorite, I think, from all the reviews that I've seen, which is the upside down room in the upside down bar. That was a really fun room. So some of the stuff was innovative. Some of the traps were kind of cool. It did kind of remind me of Cube in a way. If you guys have not seen 1990s film called Cube, it's really good. It's kind of like Saw before Saw was famous. So the idea was not super original, but it was done well in the beginning. The first maybe like 2/3 of the movie, maybe like half of the movie was done very, very well. I enjoyed how the characters had to survive. I enjoyed what the peril predicaments were, and they worked well together, despite the fact that some of the characters were kind of stereotyped. I also enjoyed that each character had a backstory. They didn't really get fully into it the way I would have liked, but every one of the six had a reason for being there and had a unique character trait of something they've survived and something about the rooms that related to their lives and backstories. I love when characters have depth. I love when backstory is brought into the story, and this one did it pretty well. It was a little by the numbers. It was a little bit like tropes, you know, like the one shy scientist, the one marine survivor, the one, business tycoon. So they were kind of tropey and kind of by the books, but at least the characters had some backstory, had some reason for being there. At this point now, I'm going to go into spoilers. Actually, I'll say this without spoiling it. Again, the first 2/3 of the movie was very good. The last third really fell off a cliff for me. I've seen a lot of complaints about the ending. This was one of the worst endings and one of the most out-of-nowhere, cash grab, forced endings to force a sequel on us that I've seen in a long, long time. Basically, they don't really give you really the full reason for why this is happening. They don't really introduce the antagonist characters until the very, very end. They don't do a whole lot of resolutions. In the last 10 minutes, they try and do a jump ahead and try and introduce new characters that we have not seen or heard of the entire time into this movie, and it just feels completely out of place. It feels totally like the studio came in and forced them to put that on there. They're going for a sequel. They're trying to force you to come back so they can explain things. So things are left very unexplained, and this feels like it's shot out of a cannon into the end of this movie, and it just feels very, very slimy. It feels like they're trying to bait you into seeing a sequel just for money, and it doesn't do any justice to the characters or to the story, and I really don't like that. The tone is out of place. It doesn't give any kind of resolution like you'd like, so the ending really kind of ruined this for me. It started off being a nitpicky but solid film, and then by the end wound up being very, very average to me. It could have been, if the resolutions and the end characters would have been done the right way, this could have been a very solid movie. All in all, though, I think I have some nitpicks about the early stuff, some of the acting, some of the character tropes and backgrounds, but the ending is really what ruins this for me. So I'm going to give this movie overall, and initially I had said this higher. I had said it was going toward the 6.5, 7 range, maybe even higher, but overall I'm going to give this a 5.5 out of 10. Now, getting into spoilers, I'm going to tell you what I mean by this. So if you have not seen this movie yet and you want to, turn this video off now. Here come the spoilers. So, basically, I did like the background of the characters. Each one of them was a survivor of things that happened to them in the past. So, Deborah Ann Woll was involved in a fire that she survived and nobody else survived. The one banker guy was involved in a boat crash with his good friend where his friend died. You later find out that he was the one that killed his friend. The one girl, her parents died, I think, in a car accident or something like that. But the government basically brought these sole survivors in unique cases together to see who would be the ultimate survivor if they all got together in a life or death escape room, to see which survivor could be the ultimate survivor for very rich viewers. Now, that trope itself is not bad. We've seen that before in Hostel 2 and stuff like that. But they never introduced the rich characters. They never told you why the rich audience chose these people. They never told you who the audience was betting on, for the most part. They never told you who was really behind this. They did introduce a game master at the very, very end, but he felt forced, and he didn't have much to say, to give reasoning-wise. And they never introduced the person that designed the game and who was involved in the designing of the game. And then at the end, they skip 6 months ahead. There's 2 survivors, and they skip 6 months ahead, and they show the 2 survivors reading clippings of the other 4 survivors being dead. So the government set this up, which I never really explain. And then the 2 survivors go try to get on a plane to go join the next escape room again to try and thwart this plan. And then they show that other people are making different escape rooms, and they know the 2 survivors are coming for them, so they're trying to set up a game where they can't survive it. So again, a lot of unexplained, last-minute thrown in stuff. A lot of important characters were unintroduced. A lot of the story was not fleshed out and told to us, and a lot of it was forced for us to have to come see a sequel. So, although Deborah Ann Woll was great, although a couple of the rooms, especially room 1 and 3, were great rooms. Some of the story early on flowed pretty well, and I like the characters' backstories. But because of the fact that things weren't fleshed out, because of the fact that some of the characters were one-dimensional, because of the fact that some of the acting wasn't super strong, and especially because of the last 15-20 minutes of this movie, where so many things are forced in and unexplained for a cash grab sequel, again, I'm giving this movie 5.5 out of 10. So what did you guys think? Did you enjoy the first half? What did you think of the ending? Would you see a sequel? And do you like this style of movie? Tell me in the comments down below. And tell me also what else you guys want me to review for you guys on my Tales from the Fort segment, where I review old films, and also my this segment here where I review current films at the drive-in. So this has been the drive-in, guys. I will talk to you soon.